Hello and welcome. Maggie welcomes you as well. She thinks it's time to play and I'm trying to do a recording. Don't you just love it? I'm going to throw this and hopefully she'll stay over there for a moment. If not, she can come back. What I'm going to be doing right now, or maybe shortly after I play with her, is I'm going to start a recording, and the recording is going to be about using some of your hand spun yarn in a rigid heddle loom. Perhaps you have a lot of hand spun yarn like I do, and you now have a rigid heddle loom. I'm going to start with a very small project. I'm going to work the loom using, again, this heavy yarn, and it's going to be for some coasters. So stay tuned, and the next part, I'll be warping the loom using some of this hand spun yarn. Well, maybe after I play with Maggie a little bit. You ready, Maggie? I bet she'll be back. Thanks, and stay tuned. There she is. As you can see, the rigid heddle loom is now warped with the hand spun yarn. I decided to use an 8-dent reed. When you have some yarn that's thick and thin, hand spun, sometimes you have to decide what works best. And after I did a wrap test, that's what I came up with to use for this particular project. I have 2 shuttles. One shuttle is ready to weave with the hand spun. The other shuttle, as you notice, has some thinner yarn. What I'm going to do is I'm going to weave a few shots back and forth with the thin yarn, and then I'm going to do some hem stitching. I'm going to do that at the end of each of the coasters. I'm going to get started doing that next, do a little weaving and finish, and you'll get to see what this project looks like on the loom. All right, I just finished hem stitching with this thin 5/2 cotton. So I have a little bit of an edge on there. And the next thing that I'm going to do is to start weaving with the hand spun. So I have my shuttle ready and take it through. And typically I kind of tuck the edge in. If you're not familiar with hem stitching, you can check one of my other recordings and I explain how it's done. Right now, like I said, this is hand spun. It could be a little sticky because this is thick and thin yarn, so sometimes I might put my hand through just to open it up a little bit to get it started. And then as I go, you might need to tighten it up a little bit. And what I'm doing is weaving some coasters. Now they might look a little large now. However, when we're done, we take things off the loom. We'll be able to see that it'll shrink up a little bit. And again, this is kind of a fun thing to do if you have a little bit of hand spun. I know sometimes you get one color. It might not be enough to do a lot, but then, tug that a little bit more, it's enough to do some coasters. So what I'll do is I'm going to continue weaving for about 5 or 6 inches, maybe 5 inches, I'll measure it, and then I'll do another hem stitch at the other end. And what's nice about this is when I'm all finished, all I have to do is cut everything off, and I'll have a nice set of coasters. Well, I just finished weaving 5 inches of the hand spun. Now what I'm going to do is change over to the yarn I'm going to use for hem stitching. I'm going to take that little end, tuck it into the next shed that I'm going to do, and I'm going to weave the thin yarn going to do a little sticky. I said when you're doing the hand spun, sometimes it sticks a little bit. This one, unwind a little bit of that. And since I'm right-handed, I like to end up on the right side of what I'm weaving to do my hem stitching. I'm going to put this in the rest position. Now, if you happen to like that cute little shuttle there, my husband makes those. Now, what I suggest when you're doing a hem stitching, either end, to take at least 3 or maybe even 4, at least 3 widths. That's my suggestion. Then you know you have enough to stitch all the way to the other end. So I have that just about ready. And have that threaded. And then I'm going to now start doing the hem stitching. And I'm going to go 4. First one seems a little tricky to me. And I'm going to go also right down into the same, between the same 2 threads, wrap it around, and we go up. Again, I'm going to go around that, pull it up, kind of get a little snug in there, go back down, come up in there, whoop, got stuck there. And I'm going to continue the same method all the way until I get to the other end. And now you can see I'm at the other end. And what I do is I usually just kind of needle weave that in, and I'll pull that thread all the way through. And I like to get things finished while it's on the loom as much as I can. So I will trim that. I already trimmed the other side. And you can see this one looks a little nicer than this one, just because, like I said, I didn't really weave a little header in first, and it'll look a little bit easier. So what we'll be doing next is I'm going to advance this, and because I want fringe at both ends, what I'll be doing is I'm going to insert a piece of cardboard or in here to give me a place to start for the next coaster. And what I did was I made a shed. This is a piece of cardboard that I will, I put it as close as I can. And what I'll be doing is I'm going to use that to beat against, and then I'll be able to do the same thing. I'll be weaving a short header, then I'm going to weave some of the wool. I'll take this out. I don't know if you can see that Maggie decides she wants to play with the frisbee that should be outside. Anyway, so what I'll start to do is I'll weave back and forth. I'll do the hem stitching, and I'll pull this out so it does wrap around here. It's a nice way. You can measure this, actually a piece of cereal box, something that's kind of soft but rigid that will give you spacing. And then what I'll be doing after we're all finished, I will just be cutting right smack in the middle of that, and then both ends will have fringe. The next and I'll put this in between each coaster as I go along. So another idea for you. You can also do the same thing if you're hemming placemats or anything else that you're doing several on one warp.